What's up, everybody? James Attaway here with Attaway Audio. Today I've got with me Jake Gosselin of Churchfront. He invited me out to run sound at his church and make some videos together, so I get to pick his brain and find out what's holding your church back from doing the most it can with technology and worship. So, Jake, thanks for bringing me out. It's good to see you. It's been good to meet you and see your team. Tell me your story with Churchfront. How'd you get involved with worship leading and tech and how those intersect? Yeah, what's your story?
Yeah, I've been a worship leader since about, I was a junior in high school, so I'm 31 now, so that makes almost, 15, 16 years, somewhere around there. And so I've been leading in small to mid-sized churches all my life, and very quickly after I started leading worship, I realized, this is about the same time too when I was in a garage band with my high school friends, I learned that if you're going to produce any type of music these days, you have to understand audio engineering, mixing, all the equipment and the gear that goes into it. So that's when my journey started, but I had literally nobody mentoring me or training me on anything. Like, it was kind of, partly my error of just not seeking out that help, but also just like, I don't know, there's no older peers or mentors who would give me direction there, and kind of just learned trial by error, all things worship tech over the next 10 years or so. It seemed like I went to college for music, went to seminary for my MDiv, kind of on the track to just, be in full-time ministry as a worship pastor. And it was about 5-6 years ago. That's when I just was able to kind of have some breakthroughs in my own ministry in terms of understanding technology, whether it's sound, video, automation, all that fun stuff, running tracks. And I was like, man, I think a lot of people could benefit from this if I just started sharing things on YouTube. And I also had a dream of just building a resource so I could make things a lot easier for people coming after me than what it was for my journey to learn all these things. So I put all that content online, started making YouTube videos on the Churchfront channel back in 2017. That's when I really was consistent with it. And then from there, it's grown to be a channel that has 176,000 subscribers, something like that. And then we have our worship ministry school learning platform. We've got a team of myself and 4 other full-time staff members at Churchfront. We're coaching, making courses. Yeah, we're hosting live events now, and it's been a blast. So it's been fun to see the hunch that I had of like, man, I think there's a lot of other people struggling with these things, like especially worship leaders who have to wear all these hats. And I think there's a lot of folks who could use this help. But fortunately, that's been validated over the past 5 or so years.
Yeah. One of the things that a lot of churches struggle with is getting over that hump of the worship team is one team and the tech team is another team. Mm-hmm. What are some things that you've seen that's worked in bringing those two realities together with some of the churches you've been consulting, mm-hmm. or where you've been a worship leader or providing some tech services? Mm-hmm. Tell me about that process of bringing those two teams together so that they're functioning well.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see those at all being separate, other than the space that's between us on a Sunday morning. But, helping, I think it's most easy. Most of the time we're coaching worship leaders, so they're the ones who are often leading the whole department, especially in small to mid-sized church. You don't even have a dedicated tech director, right, on staff. It's usually worship pastor is the tech director, who, like, we were joking about this yesterday when Adam's like, yeah, people would come up to me after the service when I was leading worship, and they're like, hey, did you hear the sound? He's like, no, I had in-ears in, right? Like, we like, as worship leaders, like, we're tech directors who don't even get a good perspective sometimes of what the tech is. So I think it's helping worship leaders understand, like, it's their role as a leader to take ownership of bringing the team together and helping their volunteers, whether it's someone volunteering at the sound booth or anywhere else in the tech booth, that, hey, like, we are in this together, and you cannot separate the mixing process from the musician process that's happening on stage. As a mix engineer, you should be listening to these songs, getting familiar with what a good mix for these songs would sound like. It's not just unmuting channels and just moving some faders around and stuff like that. It's an artistic process. Same thing with whether it's cutting video for a service or mixing for the live stream. Like, has to be one cohesive team. And I think for a lot of worship leaders, you just have to kind of get over your comfort zone of just wanting to stick with, developing band members or maybe with the musical side of it. We all kind of have our comfort zones in worship ministry, but really it requires paying attention to, we call it the 5 pillars of worship ministry. You got the theological or spiritual side of it. You got the administrative stuff, organization, like making stuff happen. Musicianship, that's kind of obvious one. Technology, that's an obvious one. And then team building is the other one. So for us, like, we were just like, I think we can prevent that, you know, segregation of worship band and tech team by helping worship leaders have a more holistic view of what worship ministry is in the first place.
That's awesome. Speak a little bit more into the team building side. What have you seen that's worked for churches that are dysfunctional at one point into coming together? Has there been, you know, certain events that they do together? Is it a mindset shift? Is it sometimes a personnel shift? What's worked well for getting those two and bridging that gap in the team and relationally?
Yeah, I think the most helpful framework that I always come back to is if there's dysfunction is, I really like John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership. Like, I think that applies to every single leadership scenario and team scenario ever, whether it's my team here at Churchfront, whether it's our volunteer team, whether it's, you know, a government or something like that. Like, there's kind of, if there's dysfunction, it's probably a breakdown one of those 5 levels, and helping people see what those 5 levels are and kind of be self-aware of where they're at in those levels. The first one being position. Okay, I have the title, so that means people got to listen to me. It's like, well, that's not going to get you very far. Like, they might initially listen to you for like the first 2 minutes, but then if you're neglecting the next couple levels, like, they're going to just write it off completely. So the next one is I think it's relationship. Like, that's the key thing. It's like so much, and I think that's the biggest breakdown a lot of worship tech teams. And sadly, I see. And I'm saying this as someone in the worship tech world. There's a lot of arrogance. Like, I see a lot of arrogance sometimes just online, because you know what it's like. We're exposed to a lot of the voices online when we're putting stuff out there, right?
Keyboard ninjas.
Yeah,
I know you're out there.
stuff like that. And it's just like, if you're an arrogant person, just don't be surprised if you're having team dysfunction, because like in your interpersonal relationships on Sunday, like you gotta like put people first. And before you get to performance, that's the next level. It's like, so put people first, be kind, be humble, be coachable. Whether you're being coached by someone else or like you're trying to also correct someone or help lead them and develop them, like, it's just basic human interpersonal relationship stuff. So that can cause a lot of dysfunction if there's not good relationship dynamics. Then there's the performance level where it's like, okay, I've got title, we've got good relationship. Now we can set some good standards about excellence and where we want to go there. And that's one I think it's easier for most of us worship pastors and tech directors to gravitate to, because a lot of us are kind of perfectionists, and we like that. We go for it, but then we neglect the relationships a lot of the time. And then after that, the next step is really, the steps 4 and 5 are basically about developing others, like being a leader of leaders. And like that's where I try to spend most of my time these days. But you can't neglect, especially if you're new to a role, the relationship level, like, because it's like people, they go with leaders they know, right? That's the popular but true saying. So read that book, 5 Levels of Leadership. If you haven't read it yet, it's a really short, easy read. I pretty much just explained the whole thing to you in 5 minutes. But yeah, that even beyond like, oh, do a pizza night or do a bowling night, like that stuff's more part of the relational level, I think, just to get to know people, and that's why people get good results from them. But just, I think it's more about too, like, how do you handle situations on Sunday when things go wrong? Do you lose your cool, or do you like, okay, no, we'll troubleshoot it, we'll figure it out, like, it's not the end of the world. Like, yeah. Don't take yourself so seriously about it, because like 99.9% of the congregation has no clue there's a massive malfunction going on with Dante, you know? Yeah. But we do, but they don't. And it's like, we don't have to lose our cool in those situations.
Yeah. I think it's important to realize that worship is still going to go on, even if it gets stripped down to just an acoustic guitar and a piano and somebody singing. Mm-hmm. And we put a lot of emphasis on the tech because it enables us to go a lot of places musically, emotionally, to lead a bigger group of people. Mm-hmm. But you know, there are people who are worshiping together corporately on the backside of a hill on some island somewhere, and they have nothing.
Yep.
And so, you know, seeing it as a tool, but not the thing that is essential for worship. Yep. So it's huge. Mm-hmm. So when you're consulting with churches, what's the biggest belief that they're holding on to that holds them back from taking it up to the next level? Whether that's with their tech and worship team together, whether it's their technology processes with audio or, video and broadcast and things like that. What thing have you seen that's been like, well, we can't really address these other things until you believe this or that, or you're holding on to this thing and it's really keeping you back?
The one that's most fresh in my memory, because I'm working on a project right now, is helping our clients see the bigger picture. So we're talking about worship technology, right? That's one of the aspects that probably the most popular reasons people come to get our help is like, we need better audio, video, live stream, whatever, right? All these things. They kind of miss the forest for the trees. So they're like, okay, our live stream is not where we want it to be. Doesn't look good, doesn't sound good or whatever. And then they immediately think like, oh, I think there's this, like, I heard about this cool $5,000 camera. We should go buy 4 of them and that's going to solve our problems. It's like, no, that's like might be a step in the process, but my guess is actually your cameras are fine, but you're missing fundamentals. Like, you're missing the fundamentals of talking about video, lighting, and framing, and like how to just use a camera. They're making cameras these days that are less than $1,000, and I could probably, outshoot you with a cheap camera, and I'll give you my $13,000 C300, and it's really who's using it and just the simple knowledge. But the great thing is, it's not rocket science, right? These fundamentals, whether it's audio or videography, like, it doesn't take, a 4-year degree to figure out how to use a camera. Let me talk to you for 10 minutes and I'll show you how, right? Yeah. Save you thousands of dollars. But a lot of it's like just missing the forest for the trees, especially like, okay, our live stream doesn't sound good. And they're like, okay, we need to get a Digico second console to mix for our broadcast, when there's a ton of problems with their acoustics in the room or the way they're capturing at the source. And it's like that's what's actually going to cause the issue. And it doesn't matter if you have a Digico or if you have an X32, it's going to sound like garbage either way. So it's like helping people step back and really assess the big picture of their system, of how they're capturing and processing audio, video, you name it, everything that goes into what we do on Sunday, to really diagnose more foundational issues that once those are fixed, everything on top, all the fun, fancy stuff gets easier and actually does do its job. Yeah. But you can't do that unless if the foundational issues of audio and video are fixed. That's probably my most fresh to our mind. We're working on our worship tech blueprint right now. I was telling you about the other day, where it just kind of helps, like, it's a really course, like, we have all sorts of courses, right, that like go into the details of the trees per se, but we're like, whoa, we don't even have a course on the actual forest to help people understand the big pillars of their tech ministry and help them kind of figure out what's going to look best for our church scenario. Yeah. So that's a huge mindset issue we come across, whether it's someone who's considering joining our program or they already join it, and we're like having to have these same conversations over and over again about like, oh, what live stream system should we build? It's like, well, it depends on this, and this factor. So trying to streamline that process as much as possible.
It's the gear between the ears.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, gear. That's a good one. Yeah. A
little bit off topic. Favorite guilty pleasure music? Nobody else is listening. Man. It's just you and Spotify. What's your go-to?
It's probably going to be John Mayer.
Nice.
Yeah. He has been since high school.
Which era?
Continuum.
Okay.
Yeah, that's still is, I think, his best album. Probably will always be, but maybe that was a good time. I was like 15, 16, first time I had my license, driving around town, like listening to Continuum.
And it's so bass heavy. It's so big and punchy. I love it. That's a great album.
The Where the Light Is live version of that. That was classic. Yeah.
Great stuff. So when you're consulting with churches, what's your favorite step in the process? Kind of like the aha moment, or the moment where for sure they're going to be making progress. They've got all the things in line to continue to go, up and to the right with the trajectory of their team being functional and their tech continuing to improve. What's that moment for you?
Yeah. It's fun when churches realize they don't need to spend $100,000 on an integrator to come install a bunch of new gear for them, but they actually have a lot of great stuff already. And for us, we're like kind of helping them fill in some gaps, but also just filling in the knowledge gaps. That's the most important part of it. Yeah, so just like, I think the best part is just like saving churches so much time, money, and headache on these processes, and just being able to kind of quickly do that. So we have a pretty extensive, like, people hop on one-on-one coaching calls. Like, so you're talking to a real person and you're getting that feedback and taking inventory of what you already have. And then we're kind of helping you map out what the the best solutions will be based on, budgets and the style you're going for and things like that. And then I think the other part of it too is just like people who, we hear this story a lot. So like people are like, I had zero experience, with cameras or running Ableton Live or mixing, but it's like empowering
I'm in charge
people.
of all of it.
Yeah.
But I have no idea
Yeah,
what
I'm in
doing.
charge of all of it, and I'm in charge of a lot of like capital expenditures to improve these things, but like I have no clue what I'm doing. But what's cool is like they go through the training, they get the gear between the ears first, right? And then they're like so much more confident. So that's the other thing, is just the confidence that people get in just learning these things. And I love that feeling. Whenever I still have those feelings once in a while today, like what the new things I learned, even when you were helping us mix, it's like, okay, I get more things in my tool bag or my knowledge tool bag to use, in the future. And it's just like that feeling that comes with understanding a concept fully for the first time, or learning a new tip or trick, or that's pretty exciting things. Not to say that we don't ever have headaches still. We still do. Yeah. You saw some of our headaches yesterday. Dante malfunctioning on us and stuff like that. But rolling with the punches becomes so much easier. And that's another thing I hope our clients get. And kind of another mindset thing I want to help them understand too. It's like, you're never going to have perfection. Like, maybe you would if you have like a 10, 15 person production team and all these redundancies and contingency plans or whatever. But like, that's not the reality for 99% of churches. So It's like, if you're like a solo worship leader or tech director with a small team, like, just don't be hard on yourself. And to me, the real goal is like, how well can you just continue to maybe decrease the punches, but also roll with the punches over time.
Yeah.
And that's pretty good.
Well, it's like even the Grammy Awards, they have malfunctions.
Yeah.
How many times have you seen a wireless tech run on stage with the right wireless mic?
Yep.
So if you're making mistakes on Sunday, you're not alone.
Yep.
The Grammys are doing it too.
Yep.
So very cool. What would you say is as you're like surveying the tech landscape in churches, what do you see as the most exciting new thing that's coming out, or thing that's been out for a while that churches haven't adopted yet, but could really simplify things for them or increase their capabilities without requiring more manpower or high expertise positions to make stuff work?
Okay. Like the past year, so much has come out in the live streaming world, and that's been like kind of overwhelming, I think, though, for a lot of people, because it's like every other day you hear about a new camera feature. It's like, hey, look at this cool new camera. It can live stream directly from the camera. It's like, okay, well, don't get too excited, because that's like does not make sense in the church workflows. But there's just, I don't know, like recently, again, I'm just thinking of what's on my mind right now. We implemented Boxcast for the Boxcaster encoder and then the streaming platform. And that's been great because it's like a fraction of the cost of some of its competitors. It automates the stream, makes it more reliable. So like that makes it easy for your team. Nobody's having to worry about like what time the service comes around, someone pressing live. Like how many times has it probably happened where someone forgot that, and then 5 minutes into the service, everybody's getting texts of like, hey, there's no live stream, start it, like things like that. So I love automation tools, and that's really what Boxcast, it's an automation and streaming tool. And then I really love what's happening with mixing consoles. Like to me, the Wing, I'm really excited about that console, and after using it for like almost 7 months now, every single Sunday, like seeing the future of where mixing consoles are going with, especially with, well, you noted on this when we were talking about it in the other video, just all the processing and plugins they're putting in these things now. Maybe they're not as like high quality as like some Waves plugins or some high-end stuff you might find and you can put in a DAW, but like it's still good, like, and it still works. And it's just exciting, I think, for people to be able to start using those things as well, learning how to use them. Again, you want to get the basics down first, but we just live in the best, most exciting time, I think, for mix engineers, and it'll probably continue to do so until AI takes over and mixes for us, and then we're out of a job. But yeah, I don't know. It's just really cool, all the tools that are out there, whether it's audio, streaming, video. Video cameras are getting so affordable and have such high quality. I don't know. There's a lot.
Yeah. I think even when AI takes over, they'll still need somebody to plug stuff in.
That's true. But the robotics is also coming along pretty well.
So just like you've got your Roomba that can come and vacuum your stage, then it can patch your stage at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's where it's going. So you run tech teams and you also run worship teams. You've been on both sides of that. Mm-hmm. From a worship leader's perspective, if you're on stage and in ears, What are the things that you're looking for when you're trying to find a sound tech, and how do you overcome that gap of being able to reliably get good information about what it sounds like when you're on stage? Like, how have you employed any tips or tricks or processes to help that transition of being able to actually observe what you have oversight of?
Yeah. So, okay. So if I'm like this coming Sunday, I'm leading worship, and yeah, you are kind of limited as a worship leader to get a good gauge of what the mix will actually sound right? So first of all, I can tell from my in-ear module, we use P16s. I can generally tell if like something is, not gain staged correctly. Even though I'm not seeing the board, I can just kind of hear, and depending on what levels are coming into my little mixer, I can, based on my own like research I've done and learning about good sound engineering, I can diagnose some issues even when I'm just listening to my in-ear mix, and then address those things. Or if I'm like, I could use some more compression on my voice or whatever, I can tell them that.
Right.
Especially, it depends on where your tap is. But in that case, I can diagnose those things. Beyond that, though, it's hard. So, other than you have to have some sort of great virtual sound check setup where you can quickly switch your inputs on your mixing console and just listen back to what it actually sounds like. So we have that set up here. I don't find myself using it often because right now we do have mix engineers who I think they know what they're doing, and like I know the show file they're using, and I know what it sounds like when I'm mixing. So I trust that it's going to sound good. But if you don't have that yet, I think worship leaders should, number one, set up the infrastructure, and it's easier than ever now to have a virtual sound check and record a Sunday or two or whatever, and spend time by the mixing console with your sound techs and talk about what it sounds like and what could be improved, and what you like, what you don't like. That to me is the only way to make any real progress on that situation. And then also make sure I have a good talkback system set up. We didn't have a talkback system here until a couple months ago, and I was like, this is hard. I don't want to yell at my sound tech all the time and have him try to yell at me. It's like you got to have good, easy communication on Sunday mornings too, between the mix engineer and the worship leader. And then the other thing too, being both a worship leader and a sound tech, I try to be, when I'm on running sound for a week, I want to be the mix engineer or sound tech that every worship leader dreams of having. Just like I'm there early, I'm making sure all the inputs are set up, ready to go, patching's good to go, board's ready to go. Everybody just shows up, plugs in, and it's good to go. And it's really not that hard when you know on Planning Center who's playing, generally what instruments they have. You got to prepare the way for your band, right? And the same thing as a worship leader, they also have to do that. Get the chord charts right, make sure your band's prepared. So much of the work, 80% of the work, just if you put that into the preparation, Sunday mornings are easy peasy from both a worship leader standpoint or a sound tech standpoint. So that's where I've run into a lot of headaches, or it's been hard in times where I've been in set up teardown churches where you don't have that convenience to pop over in the worship center during the week and get that all ready. It's like you show up early and just hope everything goes smoothly. There's some preparation you can do ahead of time, of course, but yeah, preparation is just huge. No matter what role you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jake, thanks for coming on the channel. Appreciate you having me out. It's been great to get to know you and see your setup. It's awesome. We'll have to do more of these in the future.
Yep.
If you liked this video and you want to see more stuff like this, go ahead and mash that thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions for Jake or anything else that we've talked about today. Let me know. If you've got other good leadership books too, like he talked about John Maxwell's 5 Pillars of Leadership, 5 levels of leadership. 5 levels of leadership. If you've got your favorite, put that down in the comments. And as always, be sure to subscribe, ding the little bell so you get notified when new video drops. And we'll see you back here next time on Attaway Audio.